so much for being at the first, make sure I get the name right. Workforce and Business Development Committee meeting. And so glad to have everyone. The goal of this meeting really is to serve as information as our committee start moving toward our retreat, which is scheduled for January the 12th? Next week. 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th. So without further ado, as a custom here, Workforce Development Committee meeting for everyone to introduce themselves. So I'm gonna start off with the entrepreneur expert at JCSU, the School of District Number 2, Malcolm Grant.
Terry Tidwell, Johnson Smith University.
Thomas Stick, District Director for U.S. Small Business Administration.
Thomas, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Howard, SBA.
Oh, okay.
Alexis Gordon, Economic Development.
Lori Lejeski, Economic Development.
Erin Gillespie, Economic Development.
Christy Floyd, Economic Development.
Good afternoon, Emily Cantrell, Economic Development.
Alyssa Brown, Economic Development.
So, friend, you stay right there. We're going to go to the young lady on the back row, Miss Miles.
David Sir, Charlotte Water.
Thank you. Okay. Miss Frank, oh, no, sir.
Joe Boss, Charlotte Regional Business Alliance.
Happy New Year, Joe.
Happy New Year.
Jason Schneider, Charlotte Communications.
Miss Frank.
Fran West, Economic Development.
Hi, I'm Kevin Dick with Economic Development.
Holly Eskridge, Economic Development.
Todd DeLong, Economic Development.
Tracy Dodson, City Manager's Office.
Malcolm Graham, Committee Member.
Tarek McCarty, Vice Chair.
Wow, you know, it's like he said that so much. I mean, you said like you've been promoted, like you worked your way up.
Started from the bottom. Now we're here.
See, when you're honorary member, what happens? That's what I told you. I mean, I'm Victoria's here.
Right.
Just,
Right.
David, I'm sorry.
Renee Johnson, Committee Member,
And what district?
District 4.
Angela Gray, Economic Development. Victoria Wallington, the bottom.
I was thinking I was the bottom, but I guess is the bottom.
Honorary's bottom.
And then we had one staff to join us. Please introduce yourself.
Rager, Department of General Services.
Okay. Thank you all so much. Tracy, we have really 45 minutes of the overall economic development program, so I'm going to turn it over to you, and so we can get started.
Thank you. So just to kind of give everybody an understanding of where we are, knowing that the retreat is coming up next week, we thought it might be a good idea to give you an overview of a lot of what our team has going on. Some of what's in here isn't our team, it's other partners that we have. But we thought, again, you're going to get a lot coming at you at the retreat, because this is your committee, it would be good to start with kind of a basic overview of where we are right now. So, one of the things, I'm going to start back for some of you guys, I'm going to start back at the beginning. I'll make it fast. But a year and a half ago, when I came in to the city, we did a lot of work around what is economic development in the city of Charlotte. We knew that the chamber and the regional partnership was going to change. We did a lot of surveying of our department and found out that we were disorganized and reactive were the two big things that disjointed, I think, that came out. And so we spent the first part of probably half of a year of really getting organized around a strategy. And we're organized in these 4 areas, these 4 work areas, but all of this is under the purpose of talent. And it is building a great city that attracts and retains talent, having those business opportunities and business innovation, so that's entrepreneurism, startup, small business, making sure that the talent pipeline is strong and healthy, and then attracting new businesses or growing existing businesses here. We've transitioned this a little bit because one of the things that the manager tasked me with early on was that we were going to break down silos, and that looks very silo-ish. So we changed it up a little bit for you. But it's internally and externally. So working with various partners within the city and other departments, we all don't do everything economic development. Phil and General Services is doing certain things we partner with. The Alliance we partner with now. And so how do we formulate new partnerships and a cohesive story to really move Charlotte forward? So this is how we're trying to show it now. It doesn't have quite as much information on it, but it is all about our people. And everything, again, blends together in those 4 areas. So that's a little bit of a new graphic that you will start seeing. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Now, as we go into these 4 areas, I'm going to let each assistant director kind of walk through. This isn't everything that these guys are doing. For example, we left a lot of projects off of here because you'll see projects over time, but they'll come more to the full council instead of to committee. And so you're not going to see that today. What we tried to focus on are what are some of the initiatives that you will see have recently come through committee or that you will see in committee. Then at the end, we can have a conversation about what might be missing.
Excellent. Good afternoon and Happy New Year. And before I actually get started, I wanted to recognize 2 of the 3 people who are on our team today. Lilius and Aaron, if you could, Lori and Aaron, if you could raise your hands. Lilius is, unfortunately, she's at home right now with a sick child. But the successes that you see up here and what we talk about over the next 5 minutes or so really comes down to the majority of the dedication and hard work from them. And it's been fantastic over the past year of what they've been able to accomplish with all the effort, with all of the demands on our time and the market, the way it's been going, and just some of the activities coming out of our communities and the desires and demands that are coming out of communities. It's just fantastic to see what they've been able to do. And hopefully you'll start to see some tidbits of that as we go through over the next couple of minutes. From the Great Places perspective, we focused on everything from the neighborhood and microeconomy level all the way up to larger projects, looking at corridors, looking at Gateway Station, obviously Eastland. We've had a few tax increment grants that have come over the past couple of years, such as the Midtown and River District and other reimbursement agreements that have come through like Camp North End. So we've run the gamut. But from the smaller side of things, from our more community level, from our matching grant program, which I know some people have not always been the most aware of what's happening there. In FY19, we've invested over $700,000 from that program, which has leveraged over $43 million of private investment. And that is from a confined geography, and that's something that we'll probably be discussing over the next 11 to 12 months in this committee as we talk about potential policy upgrades, is what do we need to do with that geography? Do we need to expand it in certain places? And do we need to contract it in other places where it's actually worked, and maybe it's not necessary to have that area within that geography anymore? Some of the other things we might want to consider looking into are just ways of being able to get the money deployed a little more easily to the small business owners, whether it's for upfit of internal improvements or other initiatives that might be undertaken that is more in line with today's market and what the needs are for today's businesses and communities. We've also made significant accomplishments on projects like Gateway Station, which will be, we've already had an RFQ and have an RFP, which will be due later this year, and hopefully have a selection by late spring. And then looking at projects in partnership with other agencies like the county at 7th and North Tryon. We also have the CTC, and so we got a large number of projects, including Valentine, that are coming down the way that we're looking forward to, that all in all, from Freedom Drive to University City area to Midtown to the Beatties Ford Corridor, basically running the gamut of around the entire city. We've got significant potential for leveraging over $3 billion of private investment. So it's really part of that demand is really going to necessitate us to look at our staffing, and that we're actually in the process of hiring a 4th person for our team, which will be underway. Hopefully get that person secured within the next month or two. And they'll be focusing primarily on the corridors and corridor revitalization, because as I get into that, there's a couple of different avenues of our corridor revitalization efforts that we like to expand upon and take some of our best practices from recent activities and leverage that into other areas as well. So of the 3 areas we have primarily are corridor revitalization, opportunity zones, which from a geographic perspective is very similar to the corridor revitalization. The opportunity zones boundaries are very similar to the corridor boundaries. And we also have public-private partnerships. Public-private partners, when we think about the mission, it's about leveraging private investment to help facilitate private sector opportunities for growth and create opportunities to help achieve our goals. Now, in many cases, this is a reimbursement of infrastructure where we have a plan or a design on building a street or a road connection somewhere, and then just so happens that a developer is coming to the table with an adjacent development, and they're able to do it for us, and we're able to reimburse them for doing something for us, who can usually do it faster, quicker, and cheaper than we can do it. Other ways of doing it is, for example, from several years ago, the Metropolitan was through gap financing. So there was a project that we saw that we think would really solve the community's benefits, where community's goals, where we had some affordable housing goals, we had a greenway development, we had a lot of other community features to it, and that was through gap financing and used a tool called tax increment grants. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what a tax increment grant is, it effectively is a performance-based tool that leverages the new property taxes that are generated by a project to reimburse the developer for the work that they do, the public investment they put in. So, for example, if a project is currently, if a property is currently paying $1 in taxes, now, after that project is built, it's actually going to be paying $10 in taxes. That net $9 is, some portion of that could go to reimburse them for the infrastructure or other things that they put in to help achieve the community goals. So we've had, also on our P3 perspective, we have CIP reimbursements, which is something we've done with Camp North End and River District. It's been quite successful. We haven't done a lot of it in prior to 2-3 years ago, but we're starting to look more at that now. How do we leverage our own community, our own capital dollars? And then one of the things that we started last year is this major project development support. It's been hugely successful in helping developers walk through the public process. And it may not seem, as from the outside looking in, it's necessary, but the working with planning, engineering, stormwater, Charlotte Water, CDOT, there's just a lot of different departments that a developer must kind of coordinate and facilitate conversations with, and sometimes some communication gets lost in translation. And so what this effort is trying to do is making sure that we have some consistency along the way, and that we don't delay projects, we don't delay our deployment of our funds, and we are able to bring projects to delivery stage much quicker than we normally would have. Mm-hmm.
Victoria, go right ahead.
You mentioned it a little bit, I want to make sure I remember. How do projects get in the pipeline for consideration for this work? Is there a formal process, or is it just kind of ad hoc?
As of right now, there's not a formal process. Now, it is staff resource dependent. So if we've only have 1 or 2 people that are really available to work on some of these projects, it's going to be primarily for the larger transformative projects. They think of a River District, a Ballantyne, Gateway Station possibly, as it gets through the process. So I think some of the larger ones that really requires additional hand-holding throughout the process, that's where it comes into play.
Follow up, Ms. Ashman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on my colleague, Ms. Watlington said, so there is no formal process. It's really based on whoever reaches out to our staff. Have you looked at what other cities are doing in terms of the process, or has this been discussed, Mr. Chairman, in the past about having some sort of process for this?
So I'm going to give staff a break. The answer has been no. I think we've been very sensitive to the staff load and the resources. And so what Tracy and I have tried to accomplish is make sure we prioritize the ask to the staff and make sure we're just not sending them a lot of projects.
And I'll also say that even if we get into tax increment grants and some of the projects we normally would not have done something like this on, we need to do it now because of the things that we learned from some of the mistakes that were made on some of those projects. And I would say that one staff person could probably handle 2 projects. So think about that as we talk. It's just really time consuming if we're going to do it right. Now, we can flood people with a lot of work, but then that starts we go back to where we were before we even got here. So
there's not a process, but I think there's kind of a given, and Todd said it, it's a normal project should be able to run the normal process. These are projects that are unique in their nature, whether it be through other public funding. So now we're working through multiple departments while they're doing a rezoning that's similar to the Ballantyne conversation. You know, my experience with River District was at one point in time, I think I was working with 3 different city attorneys, and it was very difficult, but that's a very unusual project. Camp North End had a rezoning, had a CIP reimbursement. So it doesn't have it's kind of this unsaid, you check these boxes kind of projects. It's not by size, but it's usually by the complicated nature of them, that they're doing multiple steps at the same time involving multiple departments.
And from your question about other cities, there aren't too many other cities that are doing this, at least from what we've gathered. There might be a development services department that handles some of this, but that may be more on the side of the permitting, but not necessarily more all-inclusive of some of the other avenues or different departmental touches that each developer or project owner has to go through.
So,
Follow up, go right ahead.
yeah, Mr. Chairman, I understand this is something very unique and requires a situation where it's pretty complicated, where it requires multiple touch points and so on. But, you know, the question does it arise that, does it really create additional barriers for someone who has never been through this process, right? What does it mean when it comes to new players in the market that may not have those connections? So I think this is something we as a committee got to look at. Is this something we should look at as a process? Or the answer may be no, but I think what are some of the barriers that we might be creating without really us knowing subconsciously?
Opportunity zones. This is something I think was discussed just a few times last year in the community.
But I'm still your friend, right, Todd?
I think we talked about it seven or so times. Not that I'm counting. Not that I'm counting. But it was really good discussion because we came away with some of the successes that you see here and what we've been able to accomplish with creating a toolbox to maximize the impact of OZs in the federal program that it is. One of those is our website, which if you haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to go on there. It's charlottenc.gov/opportunity zones. One thing that you won't see on there is the latest round of regulations that was issued by the federal government in mid to late December. And so those are the proposed regulations. The IRS is anticipating to release those and publish those regulations. I think it's January 13th.